So over the last almost 2 years since I met him, our next speaker has inspired audiences to change their worldview and see the patterns of interconnectedness within the ocean and across the ocean and among our communities. In previous SeaChange events and through other events, he has challenged us to live our ocean ethic in our everyday lives. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the stage my colleague and visionary partner in our conservation work at the aquarium, Jim Wharton, our Director of Conservation Engagement and Learning.
Good morning. So if you've been to previous SeaChange breakfasts or other aquarium events, or maybe if you've just run into me on the street, you've probably heard me talk about this idea that the aquarium has about fostering an ocean ethic in our community. So we believe that if a person understands how they're connected to the ocean, if they can articulate why they value the ocean, and if they understand what it means to live an ocean-friendly lifestyle, then protecting the ocean, restoring the ocean, just living with the ocean becomes exponentially easier. Now, as we've thought about and wrestled with this concept, I have had the good fortune of two extraordinary experiences that have really helped crystallize and refine my understanding of this challenge to foster an ocean ethic. The first of those happened just last month. I attended the second Conservation Optimism Summit. It was held at Oxford University in England. Now, conservation optimism is right up my alley, but when some people hear that, they think, wow, it's just a bunch of starry-eyed Pollyannas holding hands and singing what? What would we be singing? Kumbaya. I know you're thinking it. That's not what conservation optimism is. Now, conservation optimism is really, it's more about learning how to live productively in the gap between hope and despair. And as the bad news keeps piling up around us, this is a survival skill that all environmentalists need to cultivate. Now, one of my main takeaways from the summit is something that may seem a little counterintuitive. I realized that I don't want to be a conservationist my whole life. That may not seem very optimistic, but it is. Stick with me. When I thought about this, I realized that I was living with several unprocessed assumptions. I had assumed that because of human nature, the slow pace of change in conservation, that I wouldn't be able to create the life that I want to live in my lifetime, in my career. And that's not very optimistic at all. And it also wasn't really a good match for how I truly felt. We were asked to do some visioning exercises when we were at the summit. And they asked us to think about what would the world look like if you had achieved all of your conservation goals? What would conservation be? How would it be woven into our everyday lives? And my answer was pretty simple. My answer was that it wouldn't be. We wouldn't need it to be, not if we did our jobs right. There was another speaker at the summit who explained inadvertently the ocean ethic probably better and more elegantly than I ever have. It was a member of an indigenous community from Kenya who was explaining why his community don't identify as conservationists. What he said was, we don't conserve. It's our way of life that conserves. And that simple but powerful sentiment immediately brought to mind the many conversations we've had with our Coast Salish partners throughout the Ocean Pavilion design process. People like Councilwoman Robin Littlewing Sago and master storyteller Roger Fernandez. And it reminds us that we cannot achieve our mission without building a broader coalition, without understanding the diverse perspectives of all people. Our Western scientific foundations are absolutely critical. They're not enough to save the ocean. We need to find a way to build this broader coalition. And that brings me to another formative experience I had last fall. I was invited to participate in the first Fostering Empathy and Compassion Through Museums Summit in Dharamsala, India. That summit included an audience with the Dalai Lama. That's what you call a humble brag. Now, the Dalai Lama is every bit as intelligent and wise as you would expect him to be. He's also disarmingly goofy. Ask me about that later. Two things that he said in his audience and in the conversation that followed really stuck with me and helped crystallize another aspect of our thinking when it comes to fostering an ocean ethic. And they were the Buddhist philosophical ideas of interconnectedness and oneness. And what it made me think and realize is that humans are not separate from nature. We're certainly not above nature. Another Optimism Summit speaker characterized it like this. He said, we need to, in conservation, get over the idea that humans are bad for nature. Humans are natural. An ocean ethic is a human ethic. When the Buddhists talk about oneness, what they mean one people on one planet, part of one living community. Everybody with the responsibility and agency to take action on its behalf, on our behalf. Now, when you think about when people go back in time in movies, what do they tell them? They tell them, don't mess with anything, because any little tiny disturbance could radically change the future. Why don't we talk about the present in the same way, right? That little gem's actually from Facebook, not the Dalai Lama, but the point stands. Even seemingly small actions can grow to have incredible, immense global ramifications. Now, the actions that we take matter. And when we think about what we've done in the past and what's happening right now, there are sources of hope and optimism. We can and have taken action in the past, and we've had an impact on global scale environmental problems. Remember the hole in the ozone layer? It's getting smaller. Rivers don't catch fire anymore. If we have a very short memory in conservation sometimes, things in this country especially used to be much, much worse, and we made them better, and we have more work to do. Yes, we need wide-scale global systemic change, but you can't create systemic change in an ignorant or apathetic system. And luckily, that's something that zoos and aquariums, and the Seattle Aquarium especially, are really good at. We have this incredible opportunity. In fact, we have 860,000 opportunities a year. 50,000 of those come from our schools. We have 100,000 opportunities in the form of conversations on beaches and on salmon streams every year. We have 400 community partners that connect us with underrepresented and underserved audiences from marginalized communities. These opportunities exist for us to reach out and build that broader coalition, a coalition that's linked together by shared values and community action. I believe this is possible. I believe that we can make this conservation effort not just a profession, but our purpose. When the Dalai Lama talks about oneness, and when we talk about an ocean ethic, this is what we're talking about. One planet, one people, one ocean, and one optimistic future. Thank you very much.